Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and I'm coming to you live from my hotel room in Charleston, South Carolina. The morning, I had to get some sleep. I had to collect my thoughts, get some good information ready for you guys. I'm here to talk about day 2 of the Charleston Classic. At day 1, I was at home watching all the games on TV. A few minor thoughts there, but really good takeaways. I think day 1 really set us up for some really good matchups in day 2. Obviously, bear with me on any audio things. Still working the kinks out, though. A decent backdrop, have some carpet here. Technically, you could say I'm doing this as a live audience because I unfortunately got stuck in a courtyard-style room, and there's actually some folks outside having some beverages. College game day here. I'm recording this Saturday morning at 11:35. College game days on. Penn State fans hanging out, having some drinks before the games today. So, I'm definitely going to go out and have some good time watching football and watching college basketball here in Charleston. Saturday is the day off for this tournament. You play, bracket style on Friday, bracket style on Thursday. Set yourself up for teams to get actual practices in, some good rest, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well in a few minutes. Really quick, just wanted to mention, if you're at any MTEs this year around the turkey tourneys is what I call them, for college basketball or football, as football is winding down into the championship season, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, link in the top of the description. Use code 2pointers, TWOPOINTERS, get you $20 off that first purchase at SeatGeek.com. Since we're talking about college basketball, I will also mention the Everything College Basketball magazine is still available for purchase. It's just $10. ecbmagazine.bigcartel.com unlocks 250 plus pages of college basketball previews. Every single team, some really great stuff in there, some really great interviews. You should check it out. It'll get you set up right for, especially as college basketball is starting to heat up. It'll get you ready for your team's, bloodbath of a schedule, if depending on the conference they're in, especially. So, just wanted to mention that before we get started here. I've got a lot of really great things I want to dive into. Plan to do this one potentially with a guest, but honestly, I was there, and when you go to these kinds of events, I always like to talk about things that the things about the media game or the things about the podcast game or whatever, right? That for me personally, I tell you guys all the time that without your support, I wouldn't be doing this at the caliber I'm able to do it and bring you guys literally a podcast the next morning from an event where I've got some unbelievable information from coaches and things like that. The support, I wouldn't be here doing this without you. So I just first of all want to say that, and I want to say thank you. The other thing I really want to emphasize too is just how versatile these events are, and just from the day-to-day standpoint, I have to give a huge shout out to Ray for putting on such a great event here in Charleston, but just how these things actually function and come to work in a 5,100 seat arena here in Charleston with TD Arena. But just the kind of things that you get from these events and the ability to put out better content. And I just think ultimately that's what I try to provide. And this tournament, obviously, from a standpoint of what this tournament provides for these teams, both fiscally and also for their schedule and for the basketball side of things, I think this is a really, really important event for college basketball. I understand it's not in Maui. I understand this is not the Bahamas or Atlantis or all of these places where you're going to see all of these top 10, top 20 KenPom and AP top 25 teams. I think, as an example, Maui, I think, has, 6 or 7 of the teams are ranked in the top 25. I think Chaminade is the one team excluded from that. So when you take that in consideration, you think about how quality of a tournament, even this one is, right? Talking about the ability to see these teams like Towson, North Texas, these mid-majors that have been really impressive in the last couple of years, and we'll talk more about some of them in specifics in just a second. But I just want to highlight the MTE thing off the top and just understand how important this Charleston tournament is. Also, it goes to a really great cause. I have to give a huge shout out to Shriners and just the kind of effort and the charitability that they've put on with this. They've had a lot of different timeouts highlighting some folks that have went through the Shriners Children's Network. It's been a really, really awesome thing to see some of the work Shriners has done in and around the area here, especially in Charleston. So you're here to listen about basketball games. It's been about 5 minutes. I told you I'd get to it, so let's do it. So a couple things. I'll go through them game by game, kind of a round-robin format. One thing to note, again, some of these are consolations. And then 2 of these games were to go into the championship game. So think about the matchups here and what they mean. A couple things I noted from Thursday's performances that really I think set us up well for Friday. When Dayton's offense doesn't see a consistent, let's just call it, when they struggle, it's probably because Deron Holmes is struggling, and I think that's almost overvalued now after seeing what they did on Friday. But Nate Santos is one of the best players in mid-major college basketball, coming over from Pitt. Another guy, just like Brandon Pajemski last year at Santa Clara, didn't have a great freshman year with playing time in Illinois. When you see guys come over from high major college basketball and then they get an opportunity at a place like Dayton, obviously it comes down to obviously Coach Grant being able to see that kind of talent and know that Nate's going to be able to provide them exceptional support there. And he's been one of their best offensive players, and I have to give them a ton of credit. But we'll get into Dayton. So first thing is North Texas and LSU. This was one of the consolation games, like I said, talking about how North Texas – so to kind of just first of all, I have to give Hodge, head coach Ross Hodge, who has been in the system at North Texas or been in the coaching staff there with Grant McCasland since 2017. Grant McCasland obviously has went on to be the head coach at Texas Tech. But what Ross Hodge has meant for that North Texas coaching staff, both as an assistant and now as the head coach, he deserves every bit of the credit he's given. Do not let their 1 in, I believe, 3 or 4. I think it'll be 4 today if they don't get the victory. But don't let their slow start to the year really, turn you off of North Texas, because obviously they're playing in an American where the American's going to have a lot of stiff offensive competition, especially at the top. That Florida Atlantic game with North Texas is going to be crazy. I think that's going to be a lot closer than people expect. But Ross Hodge, what he meant for their defense under Grant McCasland, I think is completely and entirely undervalued. And, getting to hear him and getting to see him coach North Texas, I literally sat down. This is the first note I wrote. I was actually in the wrong seat the first time, so I was sitting beside the three-point line, beside the away bench when they played that first game against LSU, or the second game against LSU, on Friday at 11:30. They're the most physically imposing team I've ever seen in college basketball. Think about that, right? Think about the team we're about to talk about in a few minutes in Houston. Think about some of the teams, obviously San Diego State last year in the Final Four I got to see. They are the most athletically, I feel like every time LSU took a drive and someone took it to the chest, just a nice drive from one of their big, maybe Aaron Scott or one of the others, I felt like I was taking the hit. I felt like I felt it there. So North Texas, just one of the most physically dominating teams, and honestly, I think it sets themselves up really well. Again, I think Ross Hodge has those guys prepared. In just a moment, we'll share some thoughts that I got from him post-game as well. They can win games even when Aaron Scott isn't having his best offensive game. I know that they didn't pull this one out against LSU, but nonetheless, they can get shots from guys like John Buggs, right? He's an unbelievable scorer, super quick, super athletic. They can do really great things offensively, but they really do need Aaron Scott. There was a reason I picked him. I believe it was either for Defensive Player of the Year in the American, and obviously what he brings on that side of the ball is consistent and thorough, but offensively he's really got to get into that rhythm. If he gets one of those jumpers from the turn around, 15-foot area, maybe free throw line, that's where you really see him succeed. But we know he can stretch it out. It just wasn't exactly the greatest offensive game against LSU. Quick thoughts on LSU before I share Coach Hodge's comments post-game that I think were really, really important to speak to their prowess heading into the American. LSU's going to be a tough out. They were picked 13th out of 14 in the SEC by the ECB Mag. I'm just going to call him out. Josh Burton, that was his choice. He did the magazine writing for the SEC. I'm not calling him out in a bad way. I think LSU is just a really tough team. I think they got a lot better. They brought in, I believe it was something crazy like 11 transfers or something like that. It's a high number. It was North Texas being, having, I think 6 or 7. I heard on the broadcast watching back some of the film. That Will Baker guy, good grief. He is one of the most mobile, but just physically demanding bigs I think I've seen in a long time. Just his ability to stretch out to the foul line, but also be able to just, anytime he's in the paint, you're going to have to put 2 guys on him kind of thing, transferring over from Nevada. unbelievable player, and I think he's going to be a huge difference maker for LSU if they're going to turn their SEC season around and start to win more games than I think people anticipate. I do think they'll finish still near the bottom, don't get me wrong, but they definitely they've got to get more out of other guys than Will Baker. He's going to obviously be a huge part for their success. But they did get for a lot from Derek Fountain off the bench. He had 14, which I believe for LSU was second in scoring there. Yep, behind obviously Will Baker. Jalen Reed is going to be really important for them. He only played 15 minutes in the starting lineup there. But LSU, I think, is going to impress people in the SEC. I think they're going to be better than maybe was originally anticipated. Again, biggest takeaway, though, North Texas. Myself and two others, I believe these two guys were from North Texas. My question, if you want to see the question I ask, it's on Twitter. It's at Trevor Everett there on the screen. If you're on YouTube, if you're listening, it's at Trevor Everett, or it's in the description. But Coach Hodge, I kind of talked a little bit about like what LSU did specifically. He talked about the front court, obviously with Will Baker. But I think one of these guys asked a really great question about how these games prepare you for the future of the season and how these games really get to tell you a test of your team. And I think we can learn a lot from these statements here that I'm about to play. If you're on YouTube, you're going to see a video. If you're on Apple, Spotify, Google, you can drop a 5-star rating and a review. That'd be really awesome, and share the show. But you're going to hear kind of his candidness about what these tournaments mean and how important they are, because you could be playing, I'm going to call them cupcakes. He didn't call them that, but I'm going to call them cupcakes. So take a listen to what Ross Hodge had to say about the tournament and how these MTEs really prepare you.
Yeah, I mean, playing St. John's and LSU first two games, just how big are these two games to obviously take the steps where you want to be?
I mean, again, credit to them, credit to LSU, credit to St. John's. They made the plays at the end, but we're pretty disappointed, if we're being perfectly honest. So felt like I had an opportunity to win both games and just couldn't make the play. Whatever the play was in the last 4 minutes, whether it was a stop, whether it was a rebound, whether it was a basket, we just couldn't get it to go. But that's the part of playing in these early season MTEs. You're playing really good teams every single night, and that's why we've scheduled the way we did, so there won't be any confusion or falseness or a false sense of security. Again, we could be sitting here 4-0, playing all, KenPom sub 250 net teams, and you can create a falseness of what you really are. Well, this you learn from, you grow from, and it prepares you for what conference play is going to be and what basketball is like in March.
All right. Again, as you heard, some really great points of emphasis there from Coach Hodge. Let's move on to we're going to call it the game of the day. I just want to go ahead and be upfront and clear. You definitely probably saw the video if you followed me on Twitter. We'll get into Coach Pitino's comments in just a moment about the scouting report thing, and I've kind of went back and forth on it. I want to talk more about it. But I want to give Dayton fans all the credit in the entire world. First of all, you are the most engaging fan base I've ever interacted with on social media. Every Dayton tweet outdid every other tweet I did about any other game. Shout out to Dayton fans. I mean, my watch was giving me loud notifications, and I wasn't even sitting with the Dayton section. I was sitting in media, with Dayton's band across the entire thing from me, and my watch was telling me 99 to 101 decibels at one point. The photo I got and posted it on Twitter, and I'll put it on screen as well right here for those of you on YouTube. I got it up to 97 when I checked, and that was after a Deron Holmes, the three-pointer, and a Deron Holmes steal, I think, that caused a timeout by St. John's. So what does Dayton, what does this fan base mean? They are the most engaging, active, effective fan base in the entire country in college basketball that I've experienced. I mean, there's got to be some rabid ones out there, and you guys let me know in the comments or, let me know on social media what you think. But Dayton travels well. We're 663 miles away. I mean, Coach Grant and Deron Holmes and Nate Santos talked to after him post-game, and they were, just all smiles when I ask about, how well the Flyers fans travel, despite being 600-plus miles away from Dayton. I think 663 is exactly what I saw when I looked it up for that tweet. So, but yeah, they were all smiles talking about what that means for them, what that means for the team, and seeing that kind of atmosphere. It legitimately was a home game. I'm not trying to do that to slight St. John's in any way. I think they played a really tough basketball game, but that was definitely a Dayton home game. without a doubt. Dayton definitely came to play, and their fans came to support in droves in totality. Just a couple of notes here that are basketball related, since this is a basketball podcast. I'm not just going to talk about the fans all day. Nate Santos is a physical specimen when he attacks the rim. I mean, just like I said, the opportunity or the lack thereof coming over from Pitt. I'm just glad to see that he is given an offensive role that's not just being a complementary piece that spots up in the corner. Coach Grant knows how to use him effectively, gets him the ball in space, and allows him to create and get to the basket. Definitely one of the most physically imposing players going to the rim. I believe he had 3 and 1s in the second half alone. I think he had one more in the first half, and then he had 2 or 3 more where he just couldn't make one of the free throws or didn't make the bucket initially. So unbelievable to see there from him. Holmes obviously being very versatile in the pick and roll is really important as an NBA draft person as well. Hopefully my big board will be out here in a few weeks. I do promise one at the beginning of the year on January 1st, so should see that here soon as I start to ramp up the draft coverage. But just a couple things there to note, at least from Holmes. Obviously, we know his ability as a big that can go out to the perimeter and can guard those faster, quicker players. He's definitely got the foot speed for it. I definitely think Joel Soriano, though, put him in his place a little bit as a post defender, which I know I'm texting guys back and forth earlier during the game and talking about that post defense did really scare me. Soriano got out to like a 14, 15-point burst within the first 10 minutes of the game. And obviously slowed down as they started to figure out how to play him, keep him out of the paint on team defense there. But Holmes is, post defense. I know Soriano is big. Like, he's a big, hefty, strong dude. I think he's got to be 245. And I don't have the measurements in front of me. Of course, I'm not going to do that. But Deron Holmes, definitely showed some weakness there. But honestly, he's added such a fluidity on offense as a passer and he was bringing the ball up the court. Like when it was like a 3-point game in the second half, like he was doing things that we didn't see last year that I'm very, very excited to see from him even more. I hope with a quote-unquote weak draft class, and we'll dive into that in a few weeks, but I hope that he can really continue to show this stuff because I think he deserves a first-round grade just like he did last year, just like I gave him credit for. A couple other notes here that were really important. Simeon Wilcher choosing to decommit from North Carolina and go to St. John's. Obviously, there's some prowess there. There's got to be some kind of reason. I think his name is Rick Pitino. Of course, Rick Pitino is the reason Simeon Wilcher changed his commitment. I really like what I saw. Holmes was on the bench for this. One of Wilcher's actually only points. He has a really, really fast attack to the rim. It's 1 or 2 steps. He can get to the rim. He can attack downhill and get rim pressure. And Wilcher showed that. I'm really, really impressed. It was one play. Obviously, I think this moment was really, really big for him as a freshman. I think he was definitely up for that challenge. I just think Rick Pitino trusted his veteran guys a little bit more, even contrary to what the post-game comments will indicate. One other thing, Kobe Elvis, player for guard for Dayton, he's going to be the fastest player on the floor anytime Dayton is on the floor. Like without a doubt, an A10 player the rest of this tournament. Like when Dayton is playing a game, Kobe Elvis will be the fastest player on the floor almost every time. I think that gives Dayton an insane advantage. They just didn't really go out and use it in transition like I thought they would. Let me see how many transition points they had. They only had 3. They only had 2 points on fast break. So obviously not, it was kind of a slow grit and grind kind of game, which I totally think is fine. I think Dayton can do that. I think they can control the tempo on both ends. But when you have a player like Kobe Elvis, you've got to push it. Like that is a thing that I think gives them a differentiating advantage. And I think the kid's unbelievable. I look forward to seeing him more. He had 10 points in 32 minutes there as a starter. He had 5 assists as well. So this game was scrappy. I mean, there was guys. Somebody got, I think Kobe Bray for Dayton got ejected after some double technical stuff with some exchanged words and then some shoving. I think it was it was with 1:33 left in the second half. So game was about over there. I don't think that will affect his status for Sunday either. I think it was just one of those like heat of the moment type of games. Let's talk about Rick Pitino for a moment. That's probably why you're clicking on this video. That's probably why you're clicking on this podcast. That's probably why you're looking for the timestamp to wonder where St. John's is. Shout out to the St. John's faithful. Again, talking about Dayton's fan base on social media. I posted a clip that I'm going to play here in just a second. If you follow me on Twitter, you 1,000% saw this clip. But I'm just going to read the headline comment that I put out. And 55,000 views later, 56,000 views as we're looking at it just now. Bunch of likes and bookmarks and retweets and stuff. I mean, St. John's fans and fans attacking St. John's and other Big East schools. You can take a look at Twitter if you'd like to see that. But St. John's head coach Rick Pitino shared his frustrations moments after he was the first person to come into the media room. He said, "We're losing because we can't pay attention to a scouting report." Before I comment on that, I'm going to play it for you so that you hear it and you can get a grasp and understanding of where that context came from, and we will talk about it after you hear this. Check it out.
Disappointed with Michigan, but I'm overly disappointed tonight because we're losing because we can't pay attention to a scouting report. We got guys that just care about offense and they don't know how to defend, not in terms of effort. The effort's fine. In terms of paying attention to the scouting, how things are played, it's amazing, from coming off strong side and giving a three to the way you're playing the big guy on a pick and roll. It's a 1 point game, and we totally break down and don't play it correctly in a 1 point game. Then it's a 4 point game, we don't play it correctly. It's about as frustrating because the effort's there, they want to win, they're good guys, but they can't absorb a scouting report, which is so disappointing. So we'll just get on to the next game. Here there is no weak team, so we got a hell of a game, but we're not paying attention to scouting at all.
Okay, as you heard. So I'm just going to break it down like this. I think I went back and forth about 15 times, knowing that I was going to be doing this podcast at some point in the next 12 to 24 hours after he made those comments. I think I'm going to end up siding ultimately thinking about what, you do prepare your players, right? Like that is your job as a head coach. And that seemed to be the consensus for those that weren't, St. John's, fans at least out there on social media. But when you think about what a coach provides for a scouting report and for his preparation on defense, right? Like Rick Pitino is one of the best coaches of all time. That does not even need to be understated, right? Like he is one of the best college basketball coaches of all time, if not, top three, right? Mount Rushmore, I'm going to put there. I also think this is the kind of thing you don't do. Like he's said things like this before that's motivated teams. It seemed to have worked. I also think, people are starting to catch up to St. John's and Rick Pitino, or Rick Pitino as a whole, right? Obviously, he was very integral in bringing the three-point, game effectively from Providence back in the 90s, obviously winning a national championship in multiple locations and being able to take teams to the promised land. We know what Rick Pitino can and can't do. I still don't think this is a comment you make. I don't care if you're Rick Pitino or if you're, first-year head coach in, a low-major program. I think you prepare your guys. I think ultimately you are, regardless of what coach speak means, right, where guys go up there and they just say stuff to kind of give you coach speak and kind of, I don't really have to explain coach speak, but I think this is not something you do, right? You fall on the sword. Now, do those guys need to adjust defensively? Yeah, I saw the same thing he saw. I think there were some defensive adjustments, specifically when Dayton was attacking the rim, that I just don't think they were prepared for. I think they game planned for Dayton to be a three-point shooting team because they shot a ridiculous amount of threes on Thursday in their first game against LSU. But I think ultimately, I have to give him some credit for these comments because, Dayton you game plan for, right? And obviously the defensive scouting assignments are on the players. It's their responsibility to make those assignments correct and obviously put them out in the game and execute. So, but I will say for Dayton, to come out, in the first game against LSU and shoot a ridiculous amount of threes and then completely, change their style, I have to give, St. John's some leeway there. So, ultimately, I think, you still don't make those comments. I think you fall on the sword for your guys, but this is Rick Pitino we're talking about. I do want to say this, just as a college basketball fan, ultimately growing up, and then now hopefully trying to do this as a professional, I have to say how big an honor it is to see St. John's, well, not St. John's specifically, but Rick Pitino coach. It's somebody that, I never got a chance to technically see Mike Krzyzewski coach in Cameron. Got to see him coach throughout his, different times and away games that I could actually go to and afford. Getting a chance to see a guy like that coach, I think I tweeted it just jokingly. I think I said, getting to watch Rick Pitino coach is what I imagine it would be like to watch Michelangelo paint the Sistine Chapel. Rick Pitino is the most involved and so much fun to watch coach in the entire world. Like, hands behind his back, walking with the guys. You could have told me the guy was 50 years old if I didn't know any better, and I probably would believe you. But he's, in his early 70s, 3 to 5 years probably of coaching, a good coaching left. But then again, this is the same guy that, honestly, just he stepped away, never thought he'd be back, and then here we are. He coached now on a team, 2 out of the 3 years, I think, to a NCAA tournament berth. I hope I'm right on that. And then St. John's, of course, he's got a position to bring in his guys and set them up here in the next couple of years. Whether this year is the year or not, I guess we'll find out. Last piece on Dayton. Coach Grant was very candid about just, how this team looks and how this team evolves. And I asked him post-game, just obviously, again, like the scouting report thing and getting to really execute on. Rick Pitino made those comments, as you heard and as you saw, how frustrated he was with his team's defense. But Dayton head coach Anthony Grant, I talked to him after the game there with Deron Holmes and Nate Santos. And I asked about, St. John's being so frustrated, Rick Pitino being so frustrated, what did they do to game plan really, really well for him there? And what I think he thought, what he thought got them the victory. So, fumbling my words there, but, take a listen to what Coach Anthony Grant for Dayton thought helped get them the victory. But Coach Pitino talked a little bit about how frustrated he was with the defense. Obviously, you guys had a really good game plan. Talk about some of the emphasis points that really got you guys the victory today.
Well, I think for us it was really on both sides. In the first half, I felt like they were the attacker, they were the aggressor. I think they got 14 free throws in the first half. We knew coming in, they're the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. They were able to get 5 offensive rebounds in the first half, and we felt like that was really the difference. We had, Nate picked up 2 early ones, had to sit for a good spell in the first half. So we felt like with it being a 2-point game, that if we made the adjustments defensively, we felt like we could have success offensively. And so the guys did a good job of taking advantage of what the defense gave them. Every night's different. I thought, the guards did a really good job of putting pressure, in terms of playing downhill. Deuce was able to take advantage of some things that they did on the perimeter in terms of their pressure, and Nate was able to take advantage again of his skill set because of some of the things that were open with the way they were defending. So, like I said last night, it's always going to be a team game, and so these guys are figuring out how to complement each other. Right? We're less than 2 weeks into the season, and that's what you want to see. You want to see the team that continues to get better and figure things out amongst each other, and I think we're doing that 4 games into it.
All right, let's move on to Houston versus Utah. This team, the winner of this game was Houston. They'll be playing Dayton in the championship on 8:30 on Sunday here in Charleston. I'll kind of talk about a little bit about that game at the end and kind of preview it and what I think that means. Houston's backcourt is elite with Cryer and Jamal Shedd. Okay, so LJ Cryer and Jamal Shedd is now the backcourt. Obviously, Marcus Sasser went on to an NBA career, who's, by the way, had an unbelievable start, played really, really well for the Pistons, broken some rookie records, are on pace to do so. I thought Utah matched Houston's physicality really well. Utah being a really, really strong front court. They're a top 40 defense per KenPom. I think it's 38 going into the game against Houston. The way Utah likes to play you is they like to spread out their front court and really force you to beat them in other ways. And Coach Sampson actually talked about, how, your offense isn't sometimes just about making shots or making threes, right? And I'll get to his comments in just a minute. But Utah, runs these double pin downs trying to get Gabe Madsen open, and Houston is able to just shred completely through it. Like, there was one play specifically on the side I was sitting where Gabe Madsen is going to run off a double pin down from the corner up towards the top of the key, and then 2 picks were going to be set by 2 big guys for Utah to help get him open. Explaining a pin down there, right? And he comes down across the pin down, and LJ Cryer and Jamal Shedd completely push through both those screens and almost follow him and flush him back to the top of the key, preventing that play from going anywhere. If I remember correctly, I believe it resulted into a dump into the post and a missed shot. So Houston, I think everything you thought about them last year, and I want to save my bigger overall arcing thoughts on Houston for a show I plan on doing either next week or here in a few weeks about some of the top teams in the country. But so everything you thought about Houston from a physicality standpoint and from a talent standpoint and just from an ability to get things done and to win in many ways in a balanced way, they're better than last year. I know that sounds frightening, but my message to the world is that Houston is going to make the Final Four. I know that it's matchup dependent. I'm overreacting here, but this is the most physically dominating team that I haven't, minus North Texas. Talked about that earlier in the pod. But Houston they are bigger, faster, and stronger than anybody they're going to play, without a doubt. Now, I mean, if they played North Texas, the team that I compared them to a little bit earlier in the pod, I think that game is probably 44-46, and the winner is the last person that has the ball. But I think Houston's just better prepared. I think the experience is really, really important there. A really interesting factoid that I heard on the broadcast on Thursday: Houston has only had 2 players in the last 9 years with Coach Sampson to transfer out of the program. Obviously, that doesn't count guys transferring in. But the retention of the team and the retention of the ability to put these guys through a system and develop them and put them in positions to win, I think is super, super important. And Coach Sampson actually talked about that a little bit in the interview as well, what that meant for Jamal Shedd to come through the program as a high school kid, really get to learn and grow. Take a listen at what Coach Sampson had to say about his team's offense and those comments about their development program. When they only shot 33% from this three in this game, like I said earlier, talking about how your offense isn't just about making shots. Take a listen to what Coach Sampson had to say. I had a really great opportunity to talk to him one-on-one post-game there outside the Houston locker room. Very well. What do you think the key was tonight for victory?
All the things we wanted to do well, we did do well. I thought our defense rebounding was good. Our ball movement was good. Sometimes people have a tendency to confuse good offense with only making shots. I can't tell you how great our offense was tonight. We couldn't make a shot. Nobody was guarding us at the free throw line. Nobody was guarding us. That wasn't defense we were shooting against. And the reason why Jamal was shooting so much, they were going under double on it. So all his shots were wide open. And I told him to keep shooting until I told him stop. And then I took him out and I said, you're going to help us on defense the rest of the way. And the only shots you're going to shoot are at the rim. You get to the rim and make the right play, but we're not going to take the bait. But look at the plays he made to the wing to Cryer. It comes down, kicks to Cryer, three, Arsenault, a couple big baskets, Emmanuel Sharp, good baskets. Sharp and Arsenault were true freshmen last year on a conference champion, Sweet 16, 33 win team. They were coming off the bench as freshmen. Now look at them. That's why our player development program is so important, where everybody wants to scream and holler about portal kids. We believe in that development thing. And Terrence and JDR, J1, Jamal, all those kids are high school kids that came through our development program. But the more I'm around LJ Cryer, the more I'm impressed with his winning intangibles. He didn't shoot the ball very well tonight. And he's an outstanding shooter, but he did when he had to. That's what winners do. They make plays when they have to.
Last piece on Utah that I want to mention. Utah definitely is one of the most underrated teams in the country. Other than Gabe Madsen putting up 29 points, making 7 threes, I do fear that their offensive versatility is not as strong as it should be, right? Their ability to either, have an inside game, and if they're really relying on that, if the guys are making shots and making free throws because they're going to be getting fouled a lot, I think it can put them in weird positions. But defensively, they're, again, one of the best top 40 teams in the country defensively per KenPom. And I think Utah is going to be, I don't necessarily think they're going to be like a bracket buster per se in March, but they're definitely going to make the March Madness tournament, and they're going to be a really, really effective team getting there in the Pac-12. Let's move on lastly to Wake Forest and Towson. Wake Forest and Towson. Wake is actually the reason I'm here in Charleston covering the ACC for House of College Hoops. But got to see a lot of really great things this weekend. Wake's ball movement is really, really good. The ability to swing the ball like they can and honestly, it puts defenses in such a uncomfortable position to have so many guys that are that lethal of a threat from either attacking the rim or shooting, as we saw with Hunter Salas and Kevin Miller, or Boopy. I learned as he goes by. You'll hear Coach Forbes' comments in just a minute about Boopy. But Wake shooting the ball really, really well. I want to have the three-point shooting numbers in front of me here for just a second. They shot really well from three. I mean, this was just one of those grinded-out games. And, for the game, they shot 40%, 8 for 20, 18% on the other side for Towson. So this is one of those teams where Wake was going to have to play a really balanced attack and really balanced offense. And I think, like he talked about in the interview, you'll hear, when you play somebody like Towson and they have to try to beat you on twos, it's not exactly going to be the easiest game in the world for them. I have to give a lot of credit to Tyler Tejada. Yeah, that kid is unbelievable as a freshman. His ability to attack the rim with that kind of confidence and that kind of strength, being a freshman again, talking about going to his left and just being able to close out at the rim and shift his momentum in the air, and just the kind of shots he was making was really, really impressive against what I've mentioned many times before is a really good front court for Wake. I mean, their front court right now, I know they're missing Efton Reed. Seems like the latest on that is going to be the initial waiver was denied. Shocker. And then we hope to have an appeal here shortly. Whether that appeal is approved or not is, to be seen. But Wake obviously didn't need shooting help, but Damari Monsanto hopefully is getting healthy here soon and should help them as they begin ACC play here in a few weeks in early December. Salas is going to have to continue to be the primary scorer and be really effective for them and just be the veteran leader on the floor who, as we saw from his time at Gonzaga, wasn't exactly always the guy that they relied on. Obviously, I think he was very underrated at Gonzaga, and I'm very glad to see him have the opportunity that he has here at Wake. A couple things on Towson. I think Coach Kelsey's got a squad, right? I think Coach Kelsey's got a squad that's going to be really tough to beat in the CAA. Obviously, they've played many games in the College of Charleston TD Arena. So I think that was really just an interesting environment for them to come to and have to be prepared for when they already have to play them here later this year. I'm going to get to see Towson again later this year. I'm looking forward to seeing the development of that program. Charles Thompson is an unbelievable player in mid-major college basketball. I do think that they lack the three-point scoring that they're going to probably need in the CAA. I know the CAA has got a really good group of teams at the top that know how to play a different style of offense traditionally from shooting threes, so that's definitely not going to be necessarily a disadvantage for Towson. Tyler Tejada wasn't exactly shooting threes effectively here. Charles Thompson's not going to do that. They're going to be really reliant on guys in spotty minutes to do that. But I do think, Coach Forbes spoke really well of Coach Kelsey, and I think he's correct in those comments. Coach Kelsey's built up a really great program there at Towson, and I think they're going to make the CAA really, really tough. I mean, I projected both these teams to finish top 5 as I was writing for the CAA and the ACC for the ECB magazine. Don't forget, $10 off, acbmagazine.bigcartel.com. Link is also in the description. But I talked about these teams. You want to hear more in depth or read more in depth, you can take a look at the magazine there. I think both these teams are going to be really good. I think Wake is just they've loaded their non-con up. They put themselves through the absolute ringer to get themselves prepared for ACC play. They dropped a game last year against LSU. They obviously are not dropping those kind of games. I think they were up 20 last year against LSU. So you look at some of these games now, and they're keeping them competitive. Right, the Georgia game was really close and really good. This Towson game was a heck of a victory. Obviously, they lost yesterday in the tournament here in Charleston, but Wake is figuring some things out, right? I think they're in a good position, and I look forward to seeing them. I'll be in attendance for the November, I don't want to say the date, but the Rutgers game in Little John Coliseum, or whatever the heck Little John's Clemson, I think, whatever. The Joel, I think is what they call it now. I'll be in attendance for the Rutgers game as well as the Florida game. Looking forward to seeing these guys play again here soon. Let's take a listen and take a look. Actually, take a look on YouTube. You're just going to see a picture of Coach Forbes talking. It will not be any kind of video, unfortunately. Got him after the game there when the arena had really cleared out. But Coach Forbes was super candid. Like I said, he discussed Towson. I gotta, it was 10 minutes. The guy, is one of the best, guys to talk to in college basketball. Love Coach Forbes. Shout out to him and the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Don't exactly know what you're going to hear, but he had some really great stuff. I'm going to chop it up. It's going to be here for you to listen right now.
I was really proud of our team. It was a really gritty win. They're a very physical, well-coached team. They're kind of a mid-major Houston. They're a lot of times their best offense is to miss and go get it, and they do a great job of wedging it underneath the basket. The guards flew in there and kept a lot of balls alive. But 10 of the last 11 possessions we got stops, so we won the game playing defense. We got 2 kills back to back from the 4:49 mark. I thought that was really important. They only made 2 threes for the game, so they had to beat us 2 by 2, which is hard. I had 6 kills for the game. I thought our first shot defense was really good. We just couldn't get the ball. Golly. Executed really well on offense. Early on, they were blitzing us, trapping our ball screens, and we got them out of that because we were attacking them with the pocket pass or the quick pass across. Then they changed their coverage. Then they went 1-3-1, and we banged the 3 right away in that, which we didn't do a good job in that last night. And so I thought we really executed well. We only turned it over 5 times, and they're physical. Hunter and Boopy had really good games. We needed it. We needed them. Andrew didn't have a great offensive game, but I think he was wore out from just having to battle down there. I thought Zach did a good job. Marcus had some moments. It was a team win, and I knew it was going to be a hard game. I watched them the other day against Houston. I was like, holy mackerel, we play a lot like they do, and so I have a lot of respect for Pat and his program, and I think it's a good win for us.
Yeah, I saw a play there, and I believe in the second half, you and Cam just talk. I think it was the first half actually. You guys were really just going at it about something, and talk to me about obviously Cam only had 9 points tonight. Obviously, still contributed really well on defensive end. Talk to me about how important he is for you guys' success.
We need him. Listen, don't underestimate how hard he and Hunter had to run the baseline off them, guarding those staggers all night long. Okay, that's a lot of energy, and he did a great job of that. I was just frustrated because I really believe Cam can do it all. And I didn't think he was rebounding. We need him to rebound, and we need him to block out. And a lot of times Cam he plays so hard, he just tries to go out for the ball. And if you do that and you don't get it, you get a little shove or, ball goes over your head, now we got a problem. And so I was just on him about blocking out, but he can take it. And those 3 guards are really good players, and then you throw, the young guys are doing well, but we got to have Cam on both ends, not just on offense. One of the things I talk to my guys about all the time is you can't let your offense dictate how you defend. A lot of guys, that's, if I'm not scoring, then I don't defend. Can't be that way. And he's not like that, but you have to be on guard for that a lot.
Let's get wrapped up here. Again, I'll go ahead and make a prediction. Dayton versus I almost forgot who it was. I almost said St. John's. Dayton versus Houston. I think this is going to be an unbelievable game. I think Coach Grant's got his guys prepared, like I said. Kelvin Sampson, again, talking his comments earlier about the versatility of their offense despite the shooting. I think Houston's just, again, that physical presence is going to be really, really important for them. I also just think their shooting, if they can't get that kind of shooting from Jamal Shedd and specifically LJ Cryer, he had 2 really good 3-pointers. I had tweeted about he had identical 3-pointers in the corner by his team's bench. They got him open on some flare screens. It was really, really nice stuff to see on offense. I think this game's going to be insanely close, and I honestly want to pick Dayton, but everything I've seen and everything I know about Houston and what I believe in, I'd be crazy to pick against them. So I think for the fun of it, I think I'm going to pick Houston, but I'm going to pick them in a 1 or 2 3-point game, right? I think the crowd's going to play a big factor in this. I think Dayton having their fans here, again, I've walked the streets to get breakfast this morning. I saw 3 Flyers fans. We're a mile from the arena. My hotel's a mile from the arena, a 12-minute walk, whatever, nothing crazy like that. And seeing a bunch of Flyers fans, this place is loaded with them. They literally traveled ridiculously, and again, I have to give them all the credit in the world for that. What an unbelievable fan base. And Coach Sampson actually said on the ESPN broadcast after the Houston's victory against Utah, he said that, looking forward to our first true road game tomorrow, which should tell you something if Coach Sampson's making that kind of comment. I'll leave you with this. I obviously sitting courtside for 8+ hours and getting to see all these games and getting to see some of the things that happen inside the arena during those time frames. I want to ask, what's the best fan game during timeout? So I'm not necessarily talking about like a halftime show or anything. When a team takes a 2 to 3 minute media timeout, right? And they bring out kids on tricycles, or they bring out, the trash cans and the guys throwing hula hoops and this and this and that. What's the best fan game during timeout? Okay. I'm going to give you my pick. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go into football. I love the Dr. Pepper, throw thing. I don't know what you want to call it, right? The ring toss or whatever. You try to throw a football into that little hole, and you win. I think it's a scholarship. It's a huge Dr. Pepper funded scholarship, I believe. In basketball, this weekend they have the Dasani one where you're trying to, throw out the recycled bottles, and they're having like 8-year-olds do it, and nobody's making them, and it's really funny to hear the announcer talk about it. I'm honestly half focused on it because I'm tweeting halftime updates, and I'm tweeting updates of the game to people that might not be watching, that kind of thing on Twitter there, or X. But I have to go with the Dr. Pepper thing. I think this is a really, really good halftime, or you can do it at halftime. You could do it between a timeout or between a quarter in football. I'd love to see somebody in basketball like do it more with like the jump shots. I know they do the, guys go against each other for a prize, whatever. Like I'd love to see them do like basketball passes and bounce passes. I think people underrate who especially didn't play college basketball or any kind of level of basketball that, those passes are really difficult, right? Like making a bounce pass into a slot that you would have had to do in practice when you were a kid growing up, like playing different levels of basketball. Those passes are hard. I think they should do something similar, not necessarily with Dr. Pepper probably, but they should do something with whatever the sponsor is where you have to bounce a basketball into a hole or something like that. I think those would be really interesting. So let me know in the comments below what your favorite fan game is between quarters, between different times of the basketball game. Or again, for like if you were me and you went back into the other spaces, I went to football and gave you one there. Let me know what your thoughts there are. Let me know in the comments below if you're on Apple or Spotify, any of our lovely podcast platforms. Let me know on Twitter at Trevor Everett or at 2Pointers. Went really long here, 40-minute solo. First time I've done that in a while. Had some really great comments from some coaches I want to include in there, so definitely want to leave time for that. But I look forward to talking about the post-game coverage of the Charleston Classic. I'll be talking the championship game, Houston versus Dayton. Like I said, I have Houston in a close victory. That podcast will probably be out early week once I gather my thoughts there. Got some really great stuff I want to talk about next week once I return home on better internet service. So again, thank you for the patience with this show. Try to do the best I could to get the audio as good as I possibly can. Plan to have this out to you on Saturday. If you're not seeing this on Saturday, check it out on Sunday morning. But I'll also be on Riv Academy with River Brown. He's been on this show before, and I have talked to him many times. He's a really good dude. He's from Pick a Side podcast. Check those guys out. I'll be on Riv's podcast at 7 o'clock tonight on Saturday between these games here. Don't know when that show will go out, probably Sunday or Monday, but I'll be talking NCAA with him, just the overview landscape of college basketball, some things, some surprising teams, really interesting stuff. Looking forward to talking about it with him. This has been the 2Pointers podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to drop a 5-star rating and a review if you're on whatever listening platform you're on. The support has been absolutely unbelievable lately, and it does not go undernoticed or undervalued. I greatly appreciate every single like, comment, subscribe that you guys send out and put out to the world for me. I greatly appreciate it. You are the reason I'm able to be doing these kinds of shows from a hotel room in Charleston, covering unbelievable levels of college basketball, and your support is greatly appreciated. Don't forget ECB Magazine. Like I said, ecbmagazine.bigcartel.com. You can get a $10 copy of a 275-page, crazy, awesome place to check out all of your favorite teams and conferences throughout college basketball. And then 2Pointers, of course, is sponsored in part by SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, link in the top of the description. SeatGeek's really awesome. They're one of the largest platforms in the world to purchase a ticket. You're able to see your view from your seat in most arenas in the United States, as well as get a deal score so that you know you're getting the best possible value for where you're sitting and what you're paying. Definitely check that out. SeatGeek.com, code 2Pointers, TWOPOINTERS, all together. Again, this has been the 2Pointers podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And have a good weekend enjoying college basketball.